What a fucking lineup, man. But I'll tell you what, the lineup of this one here, that's perfect segue.
All right, let's do it.
Regular dudes.
What stuff?
Get your popcorn ready.
Welcome to Regular Dudes Watch Stuff. I am your host, Jamie G. Esquire the Fifth, the proverbial snow at the end of the rainbow.
Johnny's in, baby.
And I'm here with Magnum Mills, the soup juicer, and a bunch of beer. And we're going to talk about what we filled our holes with recently. And we're going to discuss yet another cult classic film. You're in for a treat. This time, we're doing one of our favorites, True Romance. Guys, I literally have been playing poker since 11 a.m. It's currently 9:09 p.m. Poker was light beer with tequila. And for this podcast, I decided to go with, just a light crusher here. I've got the Yachtside Dweller, Ocelot, Where Are You Now? Great brewery, my favorite, 4.7% lager, real easy drinker, just crushing a few here as we do this. Been a long day, but I'm ready for a little True Romance. Mills?
Man, I wish I was an easy lover, but I am probably an easy drinker. That probably is the right term. I'm Magnum Mills, and I just want to point out that Jamie G neglected to say the word "I," as in what we filled our eye holes with. There could also be some ear action, but everything else is behind the OnlyFans paywall. That costs extra. Thank you for checking out Regular Dudes Watch Stuff. Find us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Find us on YouTube. Find us on social media at Dudes Watch Stuff. And you can find our YouTube channel by going to joeblowfootballshow.com. If you like what you see, like what you hear, if you could, please give us a thumb, hit that like button, follow, subscribe, comment. Just do one of those things. It helps other people find the show. These regular guys really appreciate it. And Soup, what's up with you on the regular?
Yeah, man, not much. Looking forward to talking about the movie we're going to talk about tonight, man. It's definitely high up on my list, man. I got a lot of good things to get into there, man. And I'm just doing the usual, man. I somehow stumbled upon a suitcase full of fucking PBRs, man. So I'm drinking these cocksuckers tonight, man. Whatever. What else is new? So yeah.
But before we get truly romantic, we have to talk about what we have filled those eye holes with. And ear holes are also acceptable. As I mentioned, you know what? All holes are in for this. Whatever you filled your holes with lately, here you go. This is for you. We'll try to avoid any spoilers, and we'll give you a heads up if we get into that territory. Important to know. So don't worry, we got you covered. Mills, dude, what's up? What have you finally moved on to? Anything new? Or is it the same old dog and pony show? Something like 37 items.
Oh, dude, I don't know. Like Dog and Pony, is that a thing? Is that like the spinoff from the Moose and Squirrel? From the creators of Prison Teens, I think, maybe? Definitely have been keeping up on some things, not necessarily 37. Just shout out Perry Mason on HBO. One episode left in season 2. Started a bit slow for me, but I've really enjoyed it. I'm all in this one with Matthew Rhys from The Americans, amongst others. It is serialized, but you can watch season 1 without watching season 2. No word yet on season 3, but if I had to put my money on it, I'd say it's happening. I've now seen episode 5 of Yellow Jackets. It's still very good. Things are getting interesting. I will not have any spoilers from there. Saw the season 3 finale of The Mandalorian. In this real light spoilers here, I would say I enjoyed it. And I think the way it ends for me, especially considering there's already supposed to be a season 4, there's going to be these spinoffs. I interpret it as, all right, now they're going to go forward, have more kind of individual adventures. They did the setting up of the other franchises in the universe thing. I think that's promising. Still enjoyed the finale on my own, but I don't think it was anything special, especially compared to previous finales. Finally saw the series finale, season 3 finale of Wu-Tang: An American Saga. It wasn't exactly what I was hoping for. I guess it's just the idea there's so much ground that they could have covered here. I think it was a fitting finale for the series. Did very much enjoy it. All 3 seasons are now on Hulu. I would totally recommend you checking it out, whether you're a Wu-Tang fan or not, especially if you're into 90s music, just that era. It really fits. It's very cool. The seasons tend to start out a little bit slow, but they always finish with a bang. Highly recommend it. in terms of new stuff, I just want to give a big thumbs down to Shazam: Fury of the Gods. Dude, I do not like shitting on a movie set in Philadelphia or Zach Levy. I was a big Chuck guy back in the day, so this is bad. Maybe the only thing that could save him is a crossover with Kazam if Shaq is up for it. And other new stuff, I just want to say, watch Barry. It's on HBO. It's awesome. Check out the Barry podcast. We're talking about it. And also on HBO, Succession. We're also talking about that on Suck 10. Also check that out. Both of those shows are in fuego right now. Jamie G, how have those holes been occupied?
Well, these holes are, ready and willing to insert things into them. And I got to say, Magna Mills, I haven't been getting the type of insertion I want at the level in which I want. And that's just because your boy Jamie G. Esquire the Fifth, well, he's busy. But what I have been able to check out, Magna Mills, is I will second you. I will second you on Yellow Jackets. I am 4 episodes in and to season 1. And I got to say, it's becoming more than what I thought it was. After 1 episode, and we highlighted that here on Regular Dudes Watch Stuff. Go check that out. But after 1 episode, I was worried that this was all going to be about kind of, what happened in the woods and are they cannibals? Like I was worried it wasn't going to go to the level in which it's gone through 4 episodes. And I'm very happy that it has. I'm excited about this back and forth between adults to kids, the 2 different time frames. It's really got me interested. So I'm excited about that. I will continue to shout it out, but I got to say, Fish's spring tour, the spring tour of Fish. If you haven't been watching, if you don't have Live Fish, the app, you should get it. It's the best $10 you can spend. They've absolutely fucking crushed. They did 2 nights up in Seattle. It was fantastic. They did 3 nights at the Greek. You may have seen Get 'Em to the Greek. Great movie. Fish was there. They did 3 nights. It was incredible. But last night, they may have played the perfect set. Okay. This may be the most complete set. I'm going to indulge everyone for just a second. I just want to talk about the way set 2 was. And first of all, set 1 ended with the squirming coil. Set 2, we get a chalk dust opener. We get a twist. We get a 2001. We get a sneaking Sally through the alley. We get a back on the train. We get a life beyond the dream. And we get a first tube set closer, followed with the encore of Run Like an Antelope. Absolutely fucking perfect set into the encore, if you ask me. And on top of that, I'm rewatching Seinfeld, and it's been fantastic. Season 5 and 6 absolutely crush.
I'll definitely co-sign you on the Seinfeld. It just amazes me how you can remember that set list, and I'll be like, yo, did you remember that one thing from the email 2 days ago? And you're like, what's email?
Well, it's all priorities.
Fucking Rain Man a set list over here. Now I just have to send you. That's how we're gonna do it from now on. We're just gonna format everything in the form of a set list.
Yeah, that's how.
If this were a sitcom, that's how you teach the kid to learn. Then, like, all right,
I'm
gonna help you pass the math test with set lists
Thank you.
and hookers and blackjack, but that comes after.
Yes. Well, you gotta level up.
Soup, how have your have occupied forces moved into your holes?
My holes, man. I mean, my holes aren't getting as filled as they should be, probably. But I'm trying to squeeze it in when I can, man. So, good call on Fish. I have been filling my ear holes with a lot of Fish lately, man. And on top of that, I've been filling my ear holes also with a lot of Smashing Pumpkins lately, and a little sprinkle of Acoustic Hookah. That's kind of where I'm at right now. But that fluctuates kind of a lot. So. Ear holes being covered, man. My eye holes, I filled those up with just some random stuff, nothing in schedule, just kind of get home and see what's on. And I watched a movie the other night that I hadn't seen in years, and it was Bandits with Bruce Willis and fucking Billy Bob, man. I mean, it was pretty solid, dude. I remember I had seen it when it came out or whatever, but yeah, I mean, sitting through that one randomly one night after work was kind of cool. And on top of that, I definitely rewatched one Cheech and Chong's next movie. The other night, not the same night, but a different night, and that was always one of my favorites, if not my favorite Cheech and Chong movie of their movies. So yeah, it was a good rewatch as well.
Thank you for that, Soup. Without further ado, that brings us to our featured review for this episode. Last week, our first repitch. All right, we do that every 7 episodes. Like the Sabbath, we celebrate a repitch, and that's where we pitch something that we have previously lost. Mills, you went with True Romance, and then Soup and I were more than happy to throw caution to the wind and let the chips fall where they may. any particular reason from you why you pitched True Romance other than it's just fucking awesome?
That would be the correct answer. Cards on the Table, the first time I pitched it, it was a movie I hadn't seen in a long time, and I was kind of looking for an excuse. I watched it as part of that, and then actually watched it a couple more times. So I was more than happy to pitch it again here and watch it again because it's an incredibly rewatchable flick. And yes, did I know it could win? Sure, it was a good one. Maybe I should have kept it in my back pocket, but you know what, man? You got to spend money to make money. We learned that on Rounders. Had to push the chips in the middle of the table, do the damn thing. Very glad I did. It's like taking a chance, on a call girl after knowing her for 12 hours.
Why don't you go ahead and do us all a favor, break down the details of this masterpiece before we get started?
And I get it. It's like mystical. You're asking me to show me what we're working with.
Shake ass. Watch yourself.
There is a mystical level of danger here because this is True Romance, directed by Tony Scott, written by Quentin Tarantino, produced by Samuel Hadida, Steve Perry, and Bill Unger. Cinematographer was Jeffrey L. Kimball, edited by Michael Tronkick and Christian Wagner, music by Hans Zimmer. Released September 10th, 1993, budget of $12.5 million, box office of $12.6 million, running time 118 minutes, starring Christian Slater, Patricia Arquette, Dennis Hopper, Val Kilmer, Gary Oldman, Brad Pitt, Christopher Walken, and many, many more. The short plot synopsis is: in Detroit, a lonely pop culture geek marries a call girl, steals cocaine from her pimp, and then tries to sell it in Hollywood. Meanwhile, the owners of the cocaine, the mob, track them down in an attempt to reclaim it. And that is from IMDb. Shout out whoever wrote that plot synopsis, because that's about as good as you could do to fit this movie into a 3-4 sentence plot synopsis. Fully to you.
Yeah, no shit, man. No shit. And we're going to be talking about all that shit. So just to let you know right now, before you invest any more time here, this is a full fucking spoiler. We are going to talk about all things involving this movie, True Romance, all the ins and the outs and the what have yous and everything else. Now, this could branch off into other Tarantino, Tony Scott movies, characters that are in other movies or names or whatever, any kind of whatever. So there's a fucking heads up. It's your last warning. We're talking about this shit. So full spoiler, starting now. Go.
Soup Deuce, if you had to try to convince somebody to watch this movie, True Romance, and they've never seen it before, how would you go about doing it? And also, assume that it's somebody who has no idea who Tony Scott or Quentin Tarantino are, right? So obviously not somebody that's a friend of yours. How would you convince somebody to check out True Romance for the first time?
Okay, well, that throws a wrench in it. I like that, man. A little challenge, I would tell him it's a fucking great movie. It's got everything you want. It's a love story. It's got a lot of violence, a lot of action, a lot of fucking comedy, really fucking well-written dialogue. And it's, it's put together in an amazing way. And it's got probably the most stacked fucking cast ever.
You're not kidding. I mean, Jesus, dude, if I'm up here, I think I'm just listing the cast. I just cannot believe the amount of people that are in this movie. It just blows me away every time I rewatch it. The other thing I would just say is, you want to talk about some of the best writing ever done. The writing in this movie is fantastic. At its core, it's an absolute love story. It has incredible action, incredible kind of suspense and twist, and giving into your urges to satisfy your love. This thing is a masterpiece.
Very well said. Very well said. I was trying to go for something that would fit on the poster. I don't think I quite got there, but more of a just top line quote. I just say, look, you got more than a dozen great actors, many gruesome murders, the mob, gung ho cops, one huge drug deal gone bad, and one epic love story that is indeed a true romance. And just for the record, this was a little bit inspired by when copies of the original script were sent out to studios. It had the tagline, "When you're tired of relationships, try a romance."
What a great tagline. Guys, Clarence and Alabama, they might be in love, but I think the real true romance of this piece is between Quentin Tarantino's script and Tony Scott's direction. Anybody have any thoughts on what each of these legends brought to this film, and maybe what makes it work so well?
They both definitely really respected each other. I think Tony Scott is a good enough visual filmmaker that Tarantino wouldn't be upset. And even though they had some disagreements maybe on necessarily how the script worked out vis-a-vis the ending and that kind of thing, which again, Tony Scott changed. We'll get to that towards the end when we talk about it here. And it's just perfect here. You give Tony Scott that Quentin Tarantino dialogue, and he can make it work. He's great at keeping a movie moving, and that's a little bit different than Tarantino, who likes to linger. He's a little bit more deliberate of a filmmaker in the way he shoots the scenes, especially the longer takes, that kind of thing. Whereas here, it's a little bit more frantic, but it pairs very well with Tarantino's dialogue because it can be read like that. He just always tends to luxuriate a little bit more in his flicks, and here it's just a pace that keeps moving to include all these characters and everything like that. So I think it is just a case of, two artists who really fit well together. Like you see people do a collaboration song, you're like, man, I wish we get an album from them. I wish we could have gotten another collaboration between these two.
This is, I think, Quentin Tarantino at his core. Tell me he didn't sit working in some fucking blockbuster knockoff type place and daydream about being Clarence. This is like everything he is at his core, right? All wrapped up into one. Love story, geeky guy that loves kung fu and comics, goes on this incredible journey. Oh, there's a boatload of coke in the mix. Oh, there's the mob. Dude, if that isn't fucking Quentin Tarantino, I don't know what is. It has all of the things that we've seen out of almost every Quentin Tarantino movie mixed into one, just small amounts. Little bit of kung fu, little bit of organized crime, little bit of love, little bit of coke, like all this different shit, right? Not a little bit of love, a lot of bit of love, but you get what I'm saying. There's just all these different things that he's done over the course of his career, and it's all wrapped up into this script. He was fantastic, and then you couple that with Tony Scott, who just did a remarkable job. This was just, man, they knew what they had with their characters, and they attracted all these people for a reason, and they did not disappoint, man. They delivered on all of them. And shout out Christian Slater, dude. Wow.
That being said, dude, like I'm a huge Christian Slater fan, always have been, man. And I want to say this is probably, without a doubt, his best movie. A close second, or if not an equal, would be Pump Up the Volume, maybe. Yeah, and I want to, as much as I hate this, I think this is kind of where he plateaued, man. Like I don't know that he's done anything even close to this good since then. But I'd like to see him. He's trying to make a resurgence. So yeah, maybe we'll see him. He's been on various TV shows and everything else, man. Maybe we'll see him come around again and do another banger. Be great.
Yeah, it would. Christian Slater's the man.
He was very, very good in Mr. Robot. And
I've heard that was really good.
also done
Yeah.
good voice acting. I think Jamie G pitched Inside Job before.
Yes, it
And
did.
I guess we'll just mention here that originally this was part of a huge script that Tarantino wrote. It basically got chopped in half, with the first half being this movie and the second half becoming Natural Born Killers. These were originally one crazy connected universe, really, and that's why you see in universe stuff here. Like the producer here is Lee Donowitz, and Tarantino has actually confirmed that he's the grandson of Donnie Donowitz from Inglourious Basterds. And in Reservoir Dogs, Mr. White mentions Alabama. That has to do with the original ending of this flick, where, again, we said spoiler alert, in the original ending, Clarence dies, and then Alabama goes on to a life of crime, and that's how she would have hooked up with Mr. White. So that's originally how all that was connected.
Incredible, dude. Dude's an absolute genius. Quentin Tarantino, thank you for what you've brought us. And please, we look forward to that 10th movie. Wikipedia calls True Romance a romantic crime film. Is that accurate? I mean, if Die Hard can be a Christmas movie, couldn't True Romance be a romantic comedy? I think there's a chance it is more of a romantic action flick. It's a love story. I don't know, man. No, I'm gonna say it can't be a romantic comedy. I'm sorry, guys. Soup?
No, I'm gonna totally agree with you. I don't think this is a movie that would be classified as a comedy. It's got funny moments and shit, but is it a comedy? Fuck no, dude. It's way deeper than a comedy, man. This is, I don't even know if I'd call it a romantic action flick. I mean, it's, yeah, I guess that might be the best way to describe it, but you know, the rom is definitely there. The action is definitely there, you know. I mean, so yeah, I guess that's the way I would fucking put it.
I mean, but that's the key, right? You're sitting down with your significant other. She wants a romantic comedy. Bam. Pick one romantic comedy you'd rather watch over True Romance.
Probably
Yeah, I guess if that's the case, slip it.
You know what I'm saying? So it's motivate, just like on Christmas. That's why, you know, again, I think I'll make the argument Die Hard is a Christmas movie, but it also happens to let you watch Die Hard on Christmas instead of having to watch, you know, some other Christmas movie you don't want to watch. So sometimes you gotta work the system a little bit.
you got to survive Christmas, dude.
Yeah, I guess pop culture porn. I mean, I don't know what else you would really call it, but there is a real romance at the heart of it.
Yeah, there really is.
As crazy as it is,
And it's
but
funny. There's a romance and it's funny. That's all I'm saying. There's a romance and there's comedy.
there is. I think there's more action than comedy. I think the comedy's there, but it's not. I don't think anybody would classify this movie as a comedy, really.
The script and the dialogue lends itself to comedy when you have such incredible actors and actresses doing it. But I guess the way Mills put it is if we can shift that over into romantic comedies, we're like, when I pull it up and
We're
search
moving the
romantic
Overton
comedies,
window.
that
We're
pops
moving
up.
the Overton window here is what we're doing.
Yeah, I'm in. Let's blend the genders, dude.
We're trying to push this into a genre so that we can agree to watch a romantic comedy, but it also just happens that movie is True Romance.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm in it.
Man. All
See
right.
what I'm saying? We're trying to help everyone out here.
Deeper
Now,
meaning.
Like, who says that's a
Appreciate you.
romantic comedy? These dudes, they got a show, they got a channel. See,
Yeah, the
They
regular
show it, it's
dudes,
proof.
dude.
Yeah, then
The
they
regular
agree.
dudes
It's like three
watching
people at a
stuff.
bar or whatever. You know, the rule. You get, you know, three random people at a bar to agree on something, you can solve all the world's problems or something. We haven't,
You could.
Yeah,
we haven't figured out step 2 yet. That's step 1 of the underpants, no meme.
Although it might not be as well regarded as the soundtrack from The Crow, which we just recently broke down and regular dudes watch stuff, we should not sleep on the soundtrack of True Romance. Soup, you are our resident soundtrack expert. Any thoughts on this one, dude? I mean, this movie is scored by none other than Hans Zimmer, and the soundtrack featured Outshined, which is regarded as kind of the breakout single for Soundgarden, amongst others. Soup, any thoughts on the score and the soundtrack for this movie, True Romance?
I think the soundtrack was great. It's not as flashy as something like The Crow or like, you know, I mean, Forrest Gump or Judgment Night or some shit like that, but it is a fucking good soundtrack and it goes really well with the flow of the movie. Like it's just is perfect in there. I don't know that I would call it a banger, but now that I'm thinking about it, maybe it is, you know, a little bit. Like I don't know that I would buy the soundtrack, like the album, and just like listen to it on repeat. But as far as the soundtrack goes, in regards to the way the movie flows and shit, man, I think it's right on point, dude. The way like a couple of the songs are brought in, as far as like the Aerosmith song, The Other Side, like that's perfect timing. It puts you in a fucking different mood. It's a shift in the movie to where it like sets you into the LA vibe as opposed to the, you know, dirty cold Detroit vibe kind of or whatever, you know. So and it was a perfect song and whatever to do that. For whatever reason, it just happened to fucking fit right there, you know. And then of course, like every time I ever hear Outshine now, I always think about Brad Pitt smoking a fucking bong out of a fucking honey bear and shit, you know. I mean, it's like there's no way around it anymore, man. It's always there. So yeah, I mean, and altogether, just a great fucking soundtrack that fit very well into a fucking great movie.
Just enough oomph out of the soundtrack in terms of the featured artist. It's never going to live up to the featured actors and actresses in this movie, but the soundtrack has enough. Like when and where the sound comes in here, and let's not forget that overarching theme of kind of Elvis and that. I mean, shit, dude, Elvis was the king for a reason. I think a combination of all those things and when and where it was used just puts this soundtrack and score, if you will, pretty high for me because of that. It doesn't even matter kind of what was there. It's how and when it was used.
I think y'all pretty much touched on everything. I guess I would just point out I really enjoyed the score here. And actually, you mentioned the Soundgarden joint that was originally just put in as a temp track, and at test screenings it did so well that they wound up blowing almost their entire soundtrack budget on getting that song, which wound up being a fairly big deal for Soundgarden. So pretty cool there.
Very cool there. And guys, I think we got to start at the beginning of the film and the beginning of the romance. We're quickly introduced to Clarence Worley and Alabama Whitman. Before you know it, they're declaring their love for each other and getting married. For the story to work, we have to believe that Clarence and Alabama were wildly and truly in love. Undoubtedly in love. Do you think that they pulled off that effort here?
I think they did. It's really crazy the way they did it. Let me start by this. Did y'all at any point before the billboard scene figure out that she was a call girl? If you remember, when you first saw it.
It's hard for me just because I've seen this movie a lot to where I know. So it's kind of like I'm
like
trying
when
to
they're having pie and he asks her where she's from and everything. It's like, I don't know, nowhere.
Yeah.
You kind of there are signs if you look at it.
Watching this now as an adult, yeah, you can think of it, but the first time I watched this, no, I don't think I did. I don't think I went there the first time I watched this. But granted, this movie came out in 1993. So the first time I watched this was probably 94, 95, right? So I mean, at that point, I don't think I did. Now, yeah, I think there's enough there. Just like I can also see more of Quentin Tarantino in this than I used to be able to back in the day.
The thing with Clarence in Alabama right away is like, do you know that there's something fucking rotten in Denmark? Yeah, absolutely you do, man. I mean, it doesn't fucking even hide that. There's no way that shit could just be going. You don't just roll into a theater and dump your popcorn on somebody, and even that's cool. But then, like you said, there's signs, man. And obviously there's something fucking going on here. And I want to know how she knew which fucking dude he would be. It could be anybody in there. Look for the guy sitting by himself. I mean, anyway, it worked out. But were they in love from the get-go? Yeah, I mean, I think this actually spells out true romance. And the way they did it, the Christian Slater and Patricia Arquette, the way they acted this, the way they look at each other, they don't even have to say shit. Like they just perfectly fucking, I don't know. It's just there, man. So it's it's a phenomenon.
Write it as well as you want. It only works if they have that kind of chemistry that makes you feel like, oh shit, are they banging off screen? Like that palpable energy. And they really had that here. And I think that was key. But there are definitely times you're kind of watching. I definitely remember when she's like, oh, I want to go get pie after the movie. I was like, all right, so that's code for like, they're going to go have relations and then they go and have an actual pie. I always liked that. I always thought that, it was going to be, and obviously after the pie, then they do actually have pie, but and then the billboard scene, it was just a cool visual. Again, that's a touch. I don't know if that was in the original script or not, but I can see that being a Tony Scott thing. He's done things with heights like that before.
Do you not wish that was your apartment? I mean, how cool would that be to have a freaking window that goes out to
as far as the
you
downtown,
might be able to buy that building in Detroit now for $100. Well, sure, willing to take the lead on it.
No doubt.
Yeah, what up, Detroit?
One thing that I wanted to just say was just, and we touched on the kind of connectivity and the chemistry, but dude, for me, watch the eyes of both Clarence and Alabama, the way they locked onto each other, and just this, there was nothing awkward about it. But more importantly than just the opening to believe they kind of fell in love, they continue it and it evolves throughout the entire movie. I think that they pulled it off. Not only did they pull it off initially, they pulled it off all the way through, in my opinion.
Yeah, and another thing about the whole opening intro to the movie and everything is the depiction of like Detroit in the wintertime. It just looks desolate and dirty and just like that's not a place you want to go, and it doesn't look like a place you want to be really. It looks sad, it looks gloomy, and that sets the whole tone for the beginning part of this movie, kind of, I think.
The only thing that I didn't like, and I'm just going to call a spade, was, dude, nobody from Florida, what did she say, Jacksonville, Florida, or Pensacola, Florida?
Man.
What's that?
Tallahassee,
Florida.
Hell,
They do
yeah.
not have that accent. That's way too. That's some like Georgia, South Carolina type accent. It was a little bit too thick for me. I would have rather. I know they didn't want to just make her from Alabama because her name's Alabama, but fuck, man, I wish they would have went somewhere other than Tallahassee, Florida. It just wasn't enough to. I've been to Tallahassee. People don't have that accent there.
Thoughts and prayers that you've been to Tallahassee. Have you been tested?
Yes, and I got a positive result.
I do want to say I'm a little cynical, so I was definitely worried for a while that there would be a twist to this and there'd be another layer to it. I'm glad that it wasn't. And just to shout out some of the other people who read for these roles, Drew Barrymore was apparently the first choice for Alabama, but she was unavailable. Also considered Bridget Fonda, Diane Lane, Kira Cedric, Julia Roberts, Juliette Lewis, and Quentin Tarantino originally wrote the roles of Clarence and Alabama with Robert Carradine and Joan Cusack in mind.
Man, I'll tell you, freaking Juliette Lewis would have been awesome. Nothing wrong
You can
with
see it.
Patricia
You can
Arquette,
see
but
it.
Juliette Lewis would have been fucking incredible. She got the Natural Born Killers role, and that's super cool. But she would have been incredible here. Not to say that Patricia Arquette wasn't. Clarence and Alabama are clearly the main characters in our story here, and they're great. But part of their enduring legacy of true romance is it's the deep bench of supporting characters and an incredible, I mean, incredible group of actors who play them. I still am in awe at who they attracted here. The names are just mind-blowing. And before we talk about any of them individually, let's try to just figure out who our favorites are. Mills, go ahead and break it down for us here.
Roger Dodger. Again, there's a ton of great actors, characters in the flick. We ranked 12. We're going to give you our top 5. I'll just give you from the bottom up with the concentration on the top 5. We had a two-way tie at 11 between Don and Nikki Dimes. Cody Nicholson at 10. That's the other cop played by Tom Sizemore. 9, we had Lee Donowitz. 8, Dick Ritchie. 7, Mentor / Elvis played by Val Kilmer. 6, we had Elliot Blitzer. Little bit of a discrepancy here. Just want to point that out. I had Blitzer at 3. Jamie G, you had him at 11. Bronson Pinchot covered in cocaine. Why were you down on him?
Man, it just wasn't
He's
enough.
hysterical, dude. He was
He was, but dude, there was just so many. When I look at like scenes, there was just so many other ones that to me just, I don't know, man, they were just better in my opinion. Nothing wrong with it. It was a great scene, but dude, when you got Tony Soprano in a scene, you got Christopher Walken, the Brad Pitt, it just got too hard, man. I just had to bump him down a little bit.
All right, so let me just ask you in this way then, because I kind of knocked Val Kilmer as the Mentor. I had him all the way down at 11 because he only has 2 scenes and he's never fully seen. Yet you had him up at 4 despite only having 3 or 4 minutes of screen time without ever really being shown on screen. Meanwhile, Elliot had almost the most scenes in screen time of any supporting character.
Well, it's real simple. He is the guiding message. He is the internal conscience. He is the reason why everything is, right? Like without him, Clarence doesn't do any of this, bro. Like he needed him, and he is Clarence's soul. So yeah, that's worthy of being pretty high for me.
So you're saying Eminem lied to us and Clarence's parents did not, in fact, have a real good marriage?
They didn't have a real good marriage. Clarence's parents did not have a real nice marriage.
Man, 8 Mile lied to me. What kind of world are we living in? That brings us
Tragic.
to our top 5. At 5, we have Floyd, played by Brad Pitt. At 4, we have Vincent Cacciati, played by Christopher Walken. At 3, we have Virgil, played by James Gandolfini. And we had a tie for number 1 overall between Gary Oldman as Drexel Spively and Dennis Hopper as Clifford Worley. Jamie G, you had Drexel at 3. You put Virgil ahead of him. Any thoughts on that? Drexel was Soup's and my number 1 overall.
Well, okay, dude, make no mistake, Drexel is intense. He is scary. He is spot on. He's incredible. But he went so heavy on the accent and kind of the whole like play that a lot of his shit you don't catch. It's harder to catch. You got to rewatch it 5, 6 times. Have the the closed caption on to actually catch it. Virgil, first one's the bitch of the bunch. There is nothing more vivid, more scary, more hard to watch, more real, and has some humor in it than the scene with James Gandolfini with Virgil. That is a very, very, very intense scene, dude. And he just absolutely crushes. It's just, again, I love Drexel so much. Could not have the movie. Nobody could have played that role better. James Gandolfini and his scene was just crushed. It was just intense as fuck.
Yeah, I'll co-sign that Virgil and Gandolfini were ultimately more crucial and central to the flick. Where again, the drug dealer could have been anybody, but he is the most memorable character from the flick, I think. So I think that's why Drexel gets the shout outs. Like with Virgil, he did better, get Gandolfini did great, but still it's Virgil who's on the t-shirts and whatnot, right? You don't get many Virgil memes.
Yeah, no, I hear you. That's fair.
Well, see, there's also this, man. I mean, you can argue the fact that that the character was more impactful to the storyline of the movie, but I think that I don't know about that, man. I think Drexel's was just as equally important because that set this whole thing into motion, man.
Hey, he's just again, he jumps out. Whether just the combination of Gary Oldman in the role.
But at any point during that scene with Drexel, just because it happens at the beginning of the movie, were you worried about Clarence not living? Were you worried about Clarence not making it through? At that point in the movie with James Gandolfini, you worry that Alabama might not make it. Like this was a crazy moment where it was kind of hard to watch, dude. Like, and not to mention how hard that is to get into character to do that shit to a female, bro. Yeah, hard to do, dude. Hard to do.
I get you. Yeah, definitely very, very fucking. Yeah, another big reasoning I had for this is James Gandolfini playing Virgil is, James Gandolfini playing a role that you would kind of expect James Gandolfini to play. He's not stretching too far from his usual. Gary Oldman playing Drexel is a fucking stretch, dude. I mean, so that's some serious acting chops right there, man.
Right on, dude. I'll give you that 100%. He crushes too, dude.
And I believe Oldman's last two roles before this were as Lee Harvey Oswald and then a vampire in Dracula. So that is definitely some range, so to speak.
100%, man. And look, if nothing else, let's just agree that they all crush, dude.
Oh, absolutely. This was the most difficult fucking ranking thing I've had to do in a long time, dude.
Yeah.
This is cool though. I like discussing all these characters, and you talked about the range here, so I think this is a good spot as any to do our weekly 6 Degrees of Lebowski. We don't have any direct connections here. None of the main characters or whatnot, even supporting characters here, were in Lebowski, but we do not have to dig very deep. Patricia Arquette was in Martin Scorsese's Bringing Out the Dead. She co-starred there with John Goodman, who played Walter in The Big Lebowski. So 2 Degrees, my steez. Shout out. 6 Degrees of Lebowski.
My steez. And let's start with one of the smallest roles in terms of screen time. We got our dude Val Kilmer as Mentor, aka Elvis Presley. Any thoughts on Val Kilmer as the king here? And I like it, always have. And how does he stack up with other depictions of Elvis as you've seen over the years? It used to be a lot more popular than it is today.
It's hard to mention this without talking about the was it 3,000 Miles to Graceland, if y'all have seen it, because Christian Slater's in there dressing up like Elvis with Kurt Russell and Kevin Costner and David Arquette,
Yeah,
I believe,
and it's
as all Elvis
Good
dudes.
one.
So it reminds me a little bit of that. And that movie is a movie that's trying to copy this movie, I definitely feel, and trying to capture that vibe 100%. And didn't mean to bring it off touch, but I think it's a good Elvis. I just wish we'd gotten more of it. they didn't really show much because they were worried about legal stuff from the Elvis estate. But apparently Val Kilmer was on set for 2 days, but almost all of it was in hair and makeup. And I mean, what do you get to see his hair for? 3 seconds? His hair does not get much screen time. Face, almost less. Good suit, though. Nice gold suit. Great voice job, though.
I think it was mostly about the voice here. And, I wish they kind of left it open to your own kind of interpretation of what you thought that was for Clarence. I wish they would have did a little bit more with it, but I still think that it was perfect. And but dude, I think the thing we should be talking about is not the details of how much hair time and face time it was, but the fact that fucking Val Kilmer in 1993 decided to do this as the mentor and take that role. Like, come on, dude, it's Val Kilmer.
Yeah,
Also at the peak of his powers, yeah.
Yeah, dude, it was Val Kilmer in peak Val Kilmer.
I think I read something where he was actually gonna or thought about taking the role of Clarence on this one.
And I think he probably would have been able to pull it off, honestly, dude.
Yeah, probably it's Val Kilmer, but I mean, Christian Slater is just it is what it is now, and I think that's I'm not even going to get into that. But where I was going with this was that the role that he played in this movie is important because it is and I like that you don't get to see his face really. He's more the voice in Clarence's head, and that makes sense. And I think it was a good way to depict something like that because it's hard to do in a movie. Like how do you portray somebody's voice in their head? Somebody's inner
right, your inner monologue, how to display that.
Yeah,
and they went kind of the Jaws way with it, right? It wasn't maybe even intentional that they didn't mean to show the shark, but by not showing the shark as much, it actually helped to build the tension. And here I think that's right. It makes it more ambiguous. And I think what really makes it work is if you didn't know it was Val Kilmer, you probably wouldn't know. So I guess you have to go to the voice, right? And his Elvis voice, I think, was pretty good.
I think I remember the first time I watched this movie, I was younger because it was 93, so or whatever. And I did see it right away because I was like, oh, this is like 90s with Christian Slater, and I was all about it. So new Slater movie, man, it looks awesome. Went in for it, man. So I saw it pretty quickly when it came out. And I remember the first time I watched it, I was trying to figure out, I was like, because I had already liked Val Kilmer from The Doors and some other movies and whatnot. And I was trying to figure out who he was, and so I didn't even figure out who the fuck he played in there until another look through. I was like, well, who the fuck was Val Kilmer? But
yeah, you couldn't look it up on the internet or on your phone or anything back then.
No. Yeah, no, I had to just figure it out. So
it's a different world, man. It was a different world. This isn't a Tarantino movie technically, but he damn sure wrote the script. So it's only fitting that our guy, everybody's guy, even Capital One's guy, Samuel L. Jackson shows up, and he shows up in a pretty cool way. He only gets one scene here, but it's fucking memorable.
Yeah, motherfucker, I eat everything. I eat the pussy, I eat the butt, I eat every motherfucking thing. Yeah.
Especially because he shares the scene with Gary Oldman's Drexel Spivey, which we talked about extensively before this. And before we dive into the hot mess that is Drexel Spivey, any thoughts on Sammy Jackson here and his glorified cameo? Dude, I'm just going to say he absolutely fucking crushes. And this is so Quentin Tarantino, right? You got this hardcore scene. It's like a drug deal going on. But the conversation isn't about drugs or this or that. It's about eating pussy. Total Quentin Tarantino moment here. And I thought Samuel L. Jackson just crushes. I mean, steals the show, in my opinion.
Absolutely, man. I mean, he's smoking off that shit. You'll be smoking dick, or you'll be smoking off of that shit. You'll be sucking dick.
Dude, you smoking off of that sherm. Be sucking dicks. Yeah, dude, he crushes in this, dude. I cannot stress enough the fact that Samuel L. Jackson signed up for this one random scene, and he shows up and he crushes. That just tells you people were like, yo, we want to work with Quentin Tarantino and Tony Scott. You can't convince me of anything else why they got the cast that they got.
Also doesn't discriminate. He eats everything, dude.
Dude, when was the last time you heard refer to smoking weed as smoking sherm? That's pretty cool. Shout out Sammy Jackson for that.
The 90s. It was in the 90s.
It's Tarantino movie, you almost expect to see a fucking Sam Jackson appearance in one way or another, man. But just to jump in real quick to correct the wrong, or just to make everybody know that we know what the fuck we're talking about here. Sherm is when someone dips tobacco or marijuana into embalming fluid, man. So it's that wet or whatever they fucking call it.
Oh wow. Okay, so smoking sherm is not even just blazing regular trees. Interesting.
I thought it
Okay.
was with angel dust, but is that
That's why
Okay, wow. Okay,
that's why
smoking
I like
sherm.
fun factor, man.
Well,
the
dude,
fun?
all right, so
the fun factor.
so kids out there nowadays, all right, kids, I say like 25 and to
Yeah,
like
because
18.
angel dust is Sherman. If you check it, AIDS is the that's from Big L Ebonics. Yeah.
But like the thing is, dude, you guys would never understand this, but like you guys meaning like youngins today, but like back in the day, it was a legitimate thing. I never did it and I never wanted to do it, but it was a legitimate thing that people were like using embalming fluid on like trees. Like that was a literal thing for like a hot minute, dude. Like it was definitely a thing. Like people were like dipping trees in embalming fluid and like
Oh,
smoking
yeah,
them. It's
definitely a
a
thing,
crazy
dude.
thing, dude. That was a 90s thing, dude. It's total. I think it's totally specific to that era, but it
Yeah.
definitely happened.
Where does one get embalming? All right.
Where does one get
Sidetrack.
It happened, bro. It was a thing back in the day.
One thing, yeah, definitely.
It was a thing that like we worried, like you worried about. Like it wasn't a good thing, but it was a thing.
Samuel's in the scene, but he gets, I think something that sets up very well for the movie, because you're not expecting Samuel Jackson to get killed right away, right? So when fucking Drexel comes on and fucking shotguns him, that's pretty cool because it sets the idea, maybe not, quite Game of Thrones or whatever, but anyone could die. So it adds a little bit of, gravitas to the flick.
Yeah.
And this is also the first introduction of Drexel. So, just kind of thoughts on him. Gary Oldman goes crazy with him. He is probably the biggest pop culture remnant that we get from the flick as far, his memes and t-shirts and all that kind of shit and everything. So, the Drexel of it all.
I mean, the Drexel of it all, it runs pretty deep, dude. It does. I mean, it's like I could go on and on about different things in different
Until he gets shot in the deep.
in his various thing. Yeah, he gets shot right in his various thing.
He does.
Great shot, dude. That's a shot.
Oh, it's a
Better
shot.
than the
And it's
director's cut.
Bullseye, dude. I mean, damn
a
it, dude.
bullseye. It's a bullseye, dude. You
Yeah,
throw
it's
that
off
in
the
darts,
O-ring.
you're like that's your best day ever. You throw that in darts, that's your best day ever.
Not even talking about, or not even bringing up the fact that Gary Oldman's acting abilities here playing this particular role, which is just like crazy to be like, I don't know, it's just awesome. But and he plays it so well. But the character itself is like just you go in thinking, hey, what's a Drexel, and you always say, oh, it was my pimp. You don't think it's going to be that fucking guy. This fucking guy comes in and he just fucking lights it up, man. Like this dude steals.
doubt.
I mean, it's just an awesome performance, man, and just a character that was well written and well fucking played to become, I dare I say, icon.
Yeah, just incredibly, almost, I shouldn't say realistic, but at this time, you get the idea when Clarence asks Alabama, oh, is this a black guy? And she's like, oh, he thinks he is.
Yeah.
It's kind of alluding to, like, you don't realize how far he's taken it.
Oh,
so it's a nice little setup for it.
I just thought it was what we did, man.
And shout out, his body man is Paul Bates, who you might remember most from Coming to America. Just a little shout out here to Paul Bates again.
Marty,
yeah, deep supporting cast. And I thought the whole scene between him and Clarence was just phenomenal. That's Tarantino's dialogue, getting to sing there, the whole thing with how, Drexel breaks down, how Clarence isn't paying any attention, and then Clarence tells him the empty envelope, all of that. I think that is classic Tarantino right there.
And what I love about this is two things. One, just like the pie scene with Clarence in Alabama, he remembers all 7 questions he asked her and asked them back to back. In this scene, he remembers every statement Drexel makes, and he responds one by one to the point where he's like, and I'm not scared of you, I just don't like you. But shout out to the fucking swinging lamp. This scene could not be half of what it was without the swinging lamp. The swinging lamp was dope, dude. It was so cool. And that's a perfect example of when Tarantino and Tony Scott came together here and said, we got something. And fuck me, they did.
Yeah, the shootout's legitimately straight out of Last Boy Scout, the way it's filmed. I'm no complaints, but it's legitimately right that era of Tony Scott. It's totally cool. Just that's what it is.
Well, I'm pretty, man, but I ain't as pretty as a couple of titties.
That's
That's a line.
one of the greatest lines ever, dude. Shout out Drexel. And he's right. He's right. And I love that he flashes a light on himself and he's like, yeah. And he's got like that before a grill became a grill. He's got like those little fillers in there, dude, where his teeth are the things. And he's like always eating some shit. Yeah, dude. And he's got the little schmack. But when the light pops on him, I'm pretty. Yeah. But not as pretty as a pair of titties. Dude, everyone should say that and remember it. And guys, here's the good news. We're just getting started with the heavy hitters. All right, there are so many heavy hitters. It blows my mind. Dennis Hopper shows up for a few scenes. He plays Clarence's dad. Any thoughts on Clifford Worley before we get to his famous scene with Christopher Walken, which should be everyone's scene that they love? I won't say favorite, but if you don't love that scene, you just don't have a soul.
It's epic. Yeah, it's legendary.
It's incredible.
I think it's just a little interesting because Dennis Hopper and Christian Slater are both very kind of unique actors in terms of kind of their energy and their cadence. So I don't know that Dennis Hopper's kid would give you Christian Slater's energy. So maybe you don't think they would fit together because they're both kind of a little like, eccentric, both very talented. It's just they've got a vibe on a certain frequency and it just works really well. I wish maybe his dad Clifford been a little bit more than just a cipher. He's basically the ex-cop with the drinking problem. And despite our Clarence 8 Mile jokes, we don't really know anything about their marriage or their mom or anything like that. But I mean, Hopper obviously is just phenomenal all the way through and through. And shout out Rommel, the dog, cool dog.
Yeah. Cool dog too, man. And dude, I think Dennis Hopper played this fucking perfectly. And I think Slater and Hopper had that fucking chemistry on set where you could believe that, hey man, that's that's his kid or whatever. It does give a little bit, not much. It gives a little fucking teaser of a background when they do have that scene where they're trying to work it out and Slater's kind of yelling at him like, after all those years when you're fucked up and shit, he's giving the whole thing. But like, so it does sell a little bit of like, obviously there was a bad divorce. He went off the rails and drank a lot, shit like that.
Alcoholic shit. Yeah.
The basic gist of it, he used to be a cop, now he's like whatever, security guard or something, but he's still got friends on the force, which is why, he went to him and asked for the, information or whatever, so that leads to the story. But I think it was played really well. I think it was fucking perfect. I couldn't see anybody else being Hopper or being fucking Slater's dad in that movie, really, man. So I think Hopper played it really, really fucking good. And you guys see Frankie the Fly. So
well, dude, and I'll just say too, like the awkward.
Don't say Dennis Hopper can't lead a movie, man.
No, dude, like, and I'll say this too, just real quick, like Dennis Hopper, like his response when Alabama says, that they're married and basically hits him with it.
I'm his father. Are you?
Well, that's all right. I'm his wife, Alabama Worley.
And the ability for Christian Slater and Dennis Hopper to work kind of bouncing off each other the way they did here was incredible.
Oh yeah,
and I love that. It's a perfect combination of like, this was greatly written out to where you can tell kind of like a lot about the backstory here in about 5 seconds, but it's acted out to a point where it's like, damn, dude, that really works between the two of them. And it's kind of a deep scene, dude. And you just, you got to give it to both of them here. Christian Slater obviously really digs in, and it's like, fuck, man, like I kind of like agree with him. And you like kind of how that shaped out with Dennis Hopper. I thought that, again, you can't picture it as anything else. I mean, it's to me, this was really good.
I agree with absolutely everything you said. And I just want to point out one hallmark of Tarantino is this random attention to detail. When Clarence gives Bamba the money to go get beer.
Get a 6-pack of something imported. Hard to tell you what to get because different places have different things. Here, you should cover it, doggy.
Okie dokie, doggy daddy.
That is an incredibly mundane statement, but very true. And it almost goes unmentioned, and that's the kind of thing that Tarantino has always excelled at, is writing dialogue that sounds how actual human beings converse.
Yeah, especially when you've been up all night doing cocaine and you want fucking beer and chicken before 9 a.m.
Crown chicken, baby. There's a reason they're open that early.
I'm a big fan of whiskey chicken. Like, go and get fried chicken and whiskey. Like, that's a win. And just like Samuel L. Jackson, Christopher Walken only gets one scene, but dude, he makes it count. Holy shit. Christopher Walken plays legendary mobster Vincenzo Concetti, who has an extremely memorable confrontation with Dennis Hopper's Clifford. Give me your thoughts on Vincenzo and the big scene between him and Clifford Worley, and just absolutely how epic it was, and why it's your favorite scene in this movie, because it is awesome.
This is just a highlight of two, top-notch actors going at each other. I think Tony Scott does a great job of dialing both of them in, because again, Walken is another dude with his own very unique energy. Over the years, he's shown the ability to regulate it to a certain extent, to be in different things, to be anything from frantic to the classic Christopher Walken slow delivery. But here he basically feels to be a little bit like a more polished version of Frank White from King of New York. I really enjoy that. But man, this is great. In just a lot of one shots back and forth. You don't really go wide very often. It's shot great. Both actors kill it. And I just think there's a lot of ways you can read the scene, and we can get into it. But overall, like you said, there's a reason this is, probably the most famous, most memorable scene from the flick.
I mean, yeah, for sure, dude. Without going into too much detail here, I think that just the interactions between the two characters are fucking incredible, man. And at a certain point, it's like you roll in thinking so you're playing, you're in your mind right now. You're Dennis Hopper's character Clifford. You roll into the joint, man, and you immediately get ransacked, and you're like, fuck. After a couple minutes, you realize, man, this guy's gonna fucking kill me, so he went ahead and fucking just made it worth it, dude. I mean, what else are you gonna do, man? But I mean, and the dialogue here, it was important just to just to have that kind of energy in there. I don't know, man. It's legendary, and I think people grasp this as one of the most impactful scenes from the movie, if not the most impactful scene from the movie, because of it's just the gravity of it, man, on multiple levels, So
yeah, I agree with absolutely everything you said. There's one little nice piece of foreshadowing when Clifford gets back, Rommel the dog runs away. So he senses the danger. Shitty job by the dog not defending his master, but
dude, I know, man.
He just lets him go. So that's a nice little subtle thing. Again, you have to love stuff like that in a flick like this. And when they get into it, I think you're exactly right. Clifford realizes if they torture him, he's going to give up the information. Unfortunately, he left it in the form of a note on the middle of his fridge, so It was kind of all for naught. But that's what Walken told him at the beginning. You can do whatever, it won't matter how slow or fast it is. I think at the point when he asked for the cigarette, that's when he accepts, all right, this is it. That's how I kind of read it. Like before, he thought there was maybe a chance. He's pushing him. He's trying to see, but this is, his experienced cop. He knows what he's working with. And so when he asked for that cigarette, in my mind, I'm like, all right. So this is him accepting he's got to get this guy to kill him. Otherwise, he's going to spill the beans or get tortured.
Right.
And even now, either way, no good outcomes. At that point, he's accepted his fate. He wasn't drinking before. He wasn't having a beer. I'm sure if they offered him, a drink to go with the Chesterfield or whatever it was, he would have accepted it. So that's
And just one last thing, guys, can we just highlight how good Quentin Tarantino is at writing? I mean, the dialogue here is just, oh man. I mean, it's
honestly, he actually said he heard this is what he has actually said. This isn't something he came up with originally. He heard someone sell this to someone else, and he wrote it down in his notebook or whatever, something to do with scene of later on.
I gotta believe that he made it his own, but he didn't back down from having two incredible actors dueling it off here, and he adds value to the scene. The dialogue's incredible. That's part of the reason why it's so good. And then it's just portrayed so perfectly by Christopher Walken and Dennis Hopper. And guys, I got good news for you.
Real quick, just to support your point, there's only two improvised words, at least according to Dennis Hopper. It was eggplant and cantaloupe. Everything else was in the script. So all Tarantino except for those two improvs, but you could see why they left them in because they both landed.
Oh, they landed. And I got good news for you guys and everyone listening. we're going to stick with the big names, and we're going to talk about Michael Rappaport here as Dick Ritchie and Brad Pitt playing Floyd. Dick helps Clarence and Bama try to move their cocaine, while Brad Pitt is a scene-stealing guy on the couch. Tarantino said that he based the two on all the roommates he had over the years in LA before making it big, which is really cool. Any thoughts on the characters, and do they remind you of any roommates that you guys have had over the years?
Yes and yes. I think I've probably roomed with both of these guys and also been both of these guys at one point or another, I feel like.
Yeah, I'm probably right there with you, man. I definitely have had those roommates where it's like, I mean, oh, you fucking used up the last piece of toilet paper, man, and shit like that. And I don't know.
I've seen people leave like a one little square left, like so someone else would be the that little
Can't you
petty.
get up and get the door? Oh, I didn't even hear it, man. I was laying right next to it and shit. I mean, it was like I've had dudes on the couch living with me and shit before, man. I've had dudes living on the floor with me before, dude. I mean, I've been through a slew of fucking roommates and shit over my time, so I've seen a lot, and yeah, I probably had a little share of each of one of those, man. And then Dick Ritchie's a little bit more high strung, he's yeah,
He's the one to make sure the utilities don't get shut off.
yeah. He's not doing a good job on keeping the toilet paper stocked up, though, man, or the beer, or the cleaning supplies, man. So
You gotta have cleaning supplies. Where else are you gonna get those little honey joints from?
Hey, get some beer and some cleaning products.
Yeah, I mean, both guys are great. Definitely Pitch Perfect early career Michael Rappaport, where he always kind of had that nervous, kind of urban white guy energy or whatever. It always worked for me. I've generally always enjoyed Michael Rappaport. I think just Floyd gets extra credit now after the fact, because now it's like, oh, it's Brad Pitt. You know what I mean? It's not like back then.
It was like
he was coming up, but he wasn't fucking Brad Pitt then. So now it's kind of cool that Brad Pitt
93
on the couch.
Yeah, he was still.
He was not. He was nowhere
He's
near.
still Brad Pitt, though, dude. 93 Brad Pitt. He's still somebody. Like,
yeah, he was still. I think the dude from Thelma and Louise. I don't think he had really. It was still
he hadn't
early,
landed
dude.
yet, dude. He hadn't been fucking.
No, I think there was like an interview with the vampire, or maybe a
Interview with the Vamp. That was it. That was. I mean, just the year. Like that was filmed. That was already probably filming before this release. So he was still. Why do you think he's just a dude on a couch?
Yeah, he was.
It's not a cameo. That was the kind of job he was booking.
Again, down the line. So I think they had obviously they had met, hung out, was like, oh, I mean, I'll be in the movie or whatever, Tarantino.
Yeah, Brad Pitt's great. He's one of the, again, you hate like somebody could be on like the sexiest man in the world type dude, but also be good at acting and shit. It's like, God damn it, dude, save something for other people.
Yeah, I mean, it was some guy. But Brad Pitt, I always thought was kind of cool, man. I was
12 Monkeys sold it to me for him. Like that's a movie that sold me on Brad Pitt.
Like with sheets and towels, like a big hotel with great drugs for all of us nutcase, lunatic, maniac devils.
Clarence convinces Dickie to hook him up with Elliot Blitzer, played by Bronson Pinchot, who in turn hooks him up with Hollywood producer Lee Donowitz, played by Saul Rubinek. And what do we think about these two guys? They're kind of the epitome of Hollywood in the flick. The overconfident actor, the crazy drug producer. I mean, he's just buying this for personal use, right? Dude's dropping $200K on some personal use, I think.
I mean, you're talking about guys that can afford $200,000, guys that can use a whole fucking suitcase full of coke. Basically, guys you don't know, guys I don't know, and more importantly, they don't know you.
Dude, that is the best part, right? Like these are what, especially I'm assuming Tarantino viewed Hollywood guys at this time. It's just basically like they're the absolute fucking worst, and that makes it pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, I think it's a stereotypical kind of like you got the struggling actor who's still taking acting classes by the way, and is working as an intern or a fucking secretary or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
Or a big time movie producer who has done movies that have made it, like I think in this movie it's what is it,
2 billion or something, he says, right? He says a lot of
Coming home in a body bag was his thing, which is kind of like a maybe like an Apocalypse Now comparison or something like that. So yeah, you give the stereotypical fucking movie producer who could use a suitcase full of cocaine and has the money for it, and the struggling actor who works for the guy who is just trying to land roles and still in acting school and everything else, which is, well played by Bronson Pinchot. And
There's so much good shit between them, even in the initial conversation where he's trying to talk about Dickie and Elliot Messier says, like, you want me to suck his dick? That's always fucking great. It just Elliot on the fucking roller coaster, that is definitely
Elliot
fucking top notch right there. And just the way he capitulates, and apparently the scene where the cops roll up and he's covered in coke, that was all just improv, and I thought that whole bit was really great.
After all I did for you, you fucking whore.
Who the fuck do you think you're
Hi.
Nice little touch if you really listen. Dude, Lee never asked for a sample bag. That was just Bull on his own trying to get himself a nice big sample bag, and
he never says anything.
God
about
fucked him just like it did to in Fear and Loathing. God fucked him, dude.
That's
or maybe he's an narcotics agent. I don't know.
See, fucking Lee never even asked about the fucking sample bag, man. Like later in there, he never got it, obviously. So he was like, well, what the fuck? Yeah, that was straight up Elliot Blitzer's trying to fucking get fucking road dome, dude. I mean, you're the one that wanted to go fast, dude.
And can I just say, shout out Wolf Blitzer, who remains a Bills fan. Go Bills.
Yeah, fucking go Bills, man. I'm down for that. But
and it was also revealed after the fact that Lee Donowitz is actually supposed to be Joel Silver, who produced several Tony Scott flicks, including The Last Boy Scout. Bruce Willis also hated him. It was one of those kind of tongue-in-cheek things, and the actor wasn't sure, and he asked Tony Scott, and he's like, oh yeah, you nailed that fucking asshole kind of deal. And and apparently they kissed and made up a little bit after that, but Tony Scott said Hollywood satire is affectionate, but Joel didn't talk to me for a long time after that.
I mean,
when you're implying that a producer is going to spend $200K back then, that's probably like almost $750K. It's a lot of money in nowadays money.
How much do those dailies
personal
cost?
use cocaine? And it was 500, grand worth for 200 grand. So this is a lot of cocaine for personal use.
Hey, you got 500,000 worth of cola. You're unloading for 200. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a lot for personal use. But hey, you could play Santa Claus with it for whatever the fuck reasons, or whatever he wants to do. But
dude, I'm sorry, dude. We don't have Coke, but there's a Pepsi machine right down the hall.
Yeah. I only, I'm still thinking about Elliot Blitzer here, man. And I only have one question here, man. Do I look like a beautiful blonde with big tits and an ass tastes like French vanilla ice cream?
No, you don't.
But who actually prefers French vanilla over vanilla? Is that a thing?
That's what I'm saying. There's all kinds of other fucking ice creams you could have picked, but hey, an ass tastes like French vanilla ice cream, dude. Whatever, I take it.
Because calling it chocolate would be a little bit too on brand, I think. Even if chocolate is the most, everyone, I think actually the favorite is the swirl. Everyone likes the swirl.
How about Chunky Monkey, dude?
Rocky Road.
Rocky Road, yeah.
Cherry Garcia, man.
Fish food. Yeah, there's a lot of good ones, man.
No, Andy Garcia, man.
I think I need to mention here that James fucking Gandolfini is in this thing as well. I mean, if we haven't talked about enough big names, we got James Gandolfini. We got Tony Soprano here, pre-Tony Soprano. He plays mob enforcer named Virgil, who has an extremely bloody showdown with Alabama. It's hard to watch at times. Thoughts on Virgil and the classic fight scene between him and Bama?
I'll at least say that this is the most Tony Soprano we see in James Gandolfini pre The Sopranos. I've seen a bunch of it. The only thing that even comes kind of close is The Juror, but I think that's just because he's playing another kind of mob type. But here, like, that's that energy. When he's sitting there and he has that monologue about killing people.
First one is tough, no fucking fooling. The second one ain't no fucking Mardi Gras either, but it's better than the first one because you still feel the same thing, except it's more diluted. It's better. I drew up on the first one. You believe that? And the third one. Third one is easy. You level right off. That's no problem. Now, shit. Now I do it just to watch their fucking expression change.
That's a Tony Soprano monologue. The voice even is almost Tony Soprano's voice. It's not Gandolfini's natural speaking voice. That's as close as I think we see to the origin of Tony Soprano to a certain extent.
I'll totally
Least
agree
for
with you on
acting.
that one. Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely.
This was hard to watch. This was graphic. This was real. This was two incredibly talented actors and actresses kind of going at it at a scene that needed to happen, where really at this point in the movie, you don't know what's going to happen.
This is the Tony Scott of it right here. The way
It's
this scene
incredible.
keeps going and going. And I believe it took 5 days to film, and I would fucking believe it. And my notes are like visceral, realistic, bloody, feral, raw, bloody, animalistic. And did I mention bloody? And I've also watched the director's cut of this, but this feels like a real fight for your life, right?
Yeah.
In a way that
It is,
it
definitely.
doesn't always translate in
Definitely.
film. This is someone who is frantically knowing that if they don't do something, they're gonna die, with the corkscrew and her stabbing him in the foot and it setting it off. But I mean, this is just a fucking slugfest through and through. And it gets bloodier and bloodier, but this is the tale of Tony Scott. The action is shot very clearly, so you understand both what's happening and the geography of the hotel room. It doesn't feel like this is some crazy space. It just,
well, and
you
the
know,
first
top-
time you see Alabama too, right? The first time we see her having to kind of like fend for her life. And that actually tells you, like, a little bit earlier in this podcast, Mills, you talked about, they had her kind of like being somebody that homie knew in Reservoir Dogs, right? You ain't gonna be Mr. Pipel because Mr. Pipel's on another job. You Mr. Pink. But the fact that he knew Alabama, well, this scene gave believability to the fact that, like, well, shit, dude, she can maybe get herself in and out of some shit in the world of crime, right? Like, this is the first time this movie really saw her have to kind of go to the place she went.
Well, I think in that moment, dude, there was a little bit of Mallory Knox in there as well, man.
Yeah.
It was definitely a Tarantino character. And I think all like a lot of the characters are kind of affiliated with each other. And especially with Pulp Fiction, True Romance, and Reservoir Dogs, there's a lot of fucking connection there, man. And a lot of those characters are very similar. That's why they use a lot of the same names and whatnot, because I think he just had a big idea. And a lot of it just turned into fucking a couple of movies out of it, So I like that, dude, and the way she played this, man, and it was very, very gruesome and very intense, man. It was a super powerful scene, man, and well acted and well fucking produced.
And maybe, just maybe, she gets one up on him because she kills him. Her first one, assuming she hasn't killed anybody before, and she doesn't puke. He said he did. So
Right, yeah.
score one for Bama, dude.
Mills, that first one is the bitch of the bunch. We've got a few characters on the law enforcement side of things, and most memorable, the most memorable two are Nick Dimes, played by Chris Penn, and Cody Nicholson, played by Time Sizemore. Rest in peace, Time Sizemore. I think
And Chris Penn.
2023 got you, and rest in peace, Chris Penn. Fuck, man, everybody cool dies. Any thoughts on the cops in the film?
They're just straight out of the 80s, right? Like, they are the 80s cops who are probably going to try to take these guys down. But also, if they had won by the time that coke and money made it back to the evidence room, like a good 30 to 50% of it would have been missing.
Absolutely, man. These cops were just like rock hard fucking boners, fucking going for that fucking big score of, oh man, I'm gonna get this bust or whatever, like you said, dude, classic fucking like late 80s.
One of my favorite runners was, the more they heard Clarence talk, the more they're like, I love this guy.
Yeah,
Every time over the wire they heard him talk more, they just kept getting more and more into him. I mean, it's a little half bakey, and we've seen it in other flicks and shows as well.
Awesome as Clarence. Like, I fell in love with him.
I mean,
yeah, they were the audience kind of a little bit. They
when you're the cops and you're gonna bust this guy and put him in fucking jail, you're like, oh, I love this kid? No, fuck that. You don't love this kid. You're just looking for, he's entertaining you because you're listening to it and you're about to put him in jail and ruin his life.
And would you believe actually that Tom Sizemore was originally cast as Virgil, but then he passed it up for the cop role, and he's the one who suggested Gandolfini.
Wow, thank God he did. That's crazy, but I'm so happy he did.
I'd like to say it worked out for both, but actually they're both dead, dude. Holy shit, how many people in this movie are dead now? I just started thinking about that.
A lot.
That's like that's Chris Penn, Tom Sizemore, and Gandolfini all right there. There's 3.
Dennis Hopper.
Hopper, yeah, 4. Yeah, so no. Yo, somebody send somebody to help protect Christopher Walken. He's a national treasure. More than Tony Scott's dead too.
Yeah, dude. Damn, that's sketchy.
Guys, and look, man, let's enjoy him in this classic. And shit, man, that brings us to the final showdown here, the big Mexican standoff, where almost everyone dies, but Clarence and Alabama escape with the money and live happily ever after in Mexico. Mexico. Thoughts on the climax of True Romance? Was this kind of what you wanted? Were you disappointed? Were you let down? Just give it to me like that. Nice and easy, like a gentleman.
You know what? I love that it worked out. You don't really see a happy ending a lot of times, man. I like that it turned out to be, kind of what the whole plan was. It took a lot of twists and turns along the way, and a couple side roads and whatever, man, and unexpected and everything else. But it did turn out the way that Clarence planned it, man. And
well, the title dictates, right? Like just like Dude Abides, title dictates here. So if True Romance is to be, then that means they either have to have the happy ending or they both died, the Romeo and Juliet ending kind of, right? So I think it's dictated a little bit. I think it works. And I just think that the final shootout is just, again, so cool with the 80s of it all, with the Coke all in the air. And then when you get feathers and it's just everything's everywhere and people are just shooting that old school gun sound effect they don't use anymore. The Lethal Weapon one has just got heft to it, and the old squibs, and before you did the digital blood and everything like that. Again, Quentin Tarantino has argued who created the Mexican standoff or whatever here, but it is played to absolute fucking perfection.
There's nothing I can say that would change my thoughts on what you said. I'm in full concurrence, Magnum Mills. Soup?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy, dude. I mean, the fucking cops come in, and and then the fucking mob comes in. So now it's like, well, holy fuck, everybody's like, you're that's a lot of fucking firepower right there, man. You're stuck in the middle of that shit. You're gonna be shitting fucking bricks, dude. So you got people like like Elliot, who is over there like, help me, get me out of here and shit, which ultimately digs his own grave for him and everything. But then you got like Clarence in Alabama. Clarence is off in the shitter, and Alabama's in there, and she's got to be fucking thinking, oh fuck, what the fuck, So this whole situation is kind of fucking crazy, man. And then you got Lee over there. He finds out that Elliot's the rat and shit, so he starts yelling at him, and boom, he throws a coffee on him, and it just sets everything off, man. And now it's a fucking it's a bloodbath, dude, from that point on, man.
Yes, it is, dude.
And one thing I don't want to sell short is the build up to it, where they get in there. First, you have the scene in the elevator where he tries to stick Elliot and get him to confess to wearing a wire, and the cops do nothing to save him. He's begging and begging and begging, and they do nothing.
I wish somebody would just come and get me because I don't like this anymore. Get hold of yourself, you fucking sissy! And I wish somebody would just come and take me away.
And then he manages to survive, and they're like, oh, great. And then they get in there, and Lee takes Clarence aside to ask him what the deal is. And kind of it basically breaks down to, he's like, well, how did you get your, the fake cop? They sold he told them they sold the drugs from her. How do you get him to do it? And, Clarence like,
why does he think that you can sell it?
I bullshitted him.
You are nuts! He's a wild man, this kid Clarence. I like him.
and that's why Lee agrees to do the deal, because he feels so real, right? Like he actually seems to be that dude. He's just kind of like, yep, I managed to basically talk my way into this bunch of cocaine. Would you like to buy it so I can get the fuck out of here, please? And even the cops respect him. So it does a great job of setting up the shootout. And really kind of, you don't care who wins as long as, Clarence and Bama make it out, right? That's pretty much the deal.
Yeah, and that's an interesting segue here because we should talk about this, all right? And Quentin Tarantino's original script, so the original way of doing this here, Clarence dies in the shootout. It was Tony Scott's call. Tony Scott, the director of this movie, it was his call to give the happy ending. And Tarantino eventually wound up saying that it was actually the right ending for this movie. So he kind of concurred that that was the right call. Would you guys look at True Romance any differently if they stuck with the original ending where Clarence dies in that shootout?
The only way I would be
Kind
okay
of dying for his romance, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I can maybe see it, but I would have to get like I'm not that would be a major shocker for me because it is what it is to me right now, and that's the story it is for me right now. But the only way I could maybe accept that is if they did like some kind of fucking other shit with the story of like maybe a prequel with Alabama and Mr. White and shit, and go off on the side stories of that character and the advancement of what happened, post that. The way True Romance ends, you don't need to post anything. It ends and that's it. You don't need a part two. If it ended with Clarence dying, maybe you would need a part two to kind of like keep that character going or whatever. Or maybe it's just because I know that was part of it and that's what I'm thinking. I don't know. But for me, I like the way it is. I don't think it should ever be fucked with.
Yeah, part 2 probably would have been Alabama possibly showing up in a future Tarantino movie, whether it's Reservoir Dogs or Pulp Fiction like that. I think you're right for it to be, again, like I said, I think for it to be a true romance, they either have to have the happy ending or the Romeo and Juliet ending. Those are the two endings you get, and I like that they chose this one here. Tarantino basically came around to it. He more or less said that, if his script, it'd been done originally as the way that it was, so be it. That was the ending he'd stick by. But for the movie that Tony Scott had shot, he felt that was the best ending. And I really, it's hard to argue here. I like them getting away. I'm usually not for the all like, happy ending or whatever, but I really think I wanted the happy ending here. I think we need it. I think the characters kind of deserved it. So
I wanted it too, and I'm glad that they did it. I mean, I think you could look. You can make a case that like true romance means beyond this life, it's forever. And like the fact that Clarence like maybe would have given his life for his love for Alabama, I think you can make a case. But I'm really glad they went the way they did. I don't know, man. I think it was the right call, and I understand why it may have been a difficult call in the moment. But if you have kind of hindsight 2020, I think it was the right call. That's really all I've got here. I mean, anybody got anything else they'd like to discuss that maybe we haven't covered, or just maybe glossed over a bit when it comes to True Romance? I mean, there's a lot of shit. I don't even know how long we've been recording for, but this movie deserves it. It's a lot of shit in there. Anything else?
There's been a little sprinkle on the top here. And Soup, I know you've talked about sometimes you use True Romance quotes in your everyday life. Are there any that stick out that we haven't talked about?
I do use True Romance quotes a lot in life, and it's hard to think of one right now because it kind of has to come into play. Like it just pops in there, like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. A moment happens and it pops in there, So like, yeah, no, I don't know that I can think of one right now because nothing's popping in there right now, man. So
Well, that's a bummer.
Yeah, it is. But
Big
trust
time
me,
bummer.
they are out there.
They're all that snow at the end of the rainbow. I see you searching for it.
Yes, indeed.
So you think you're sponge-worthy?
Yes, I think I'm sponge-worthy. I think I'm very sponge-worthy.
You know you're nuts with these sponges.
Run down your case for me again.
She said I wasn't sponge-worthy. Wouldn't waste a sponge on me.
I just want to make things easy. I would like to make a motion to the court here. I move that we declare True Romance to be sponge-worthy by a unanimous voice vote. If you're in favor, just say aye.
Absolutely.
Aye.
All right, that is a unanimous voice vote. True Romance is sponge-worthy. Not a surprise there. So we got that out of the way. It's time to give a grade to True Romance. We'll keep it simple on a scale of 1 to 10 pink Cadillacs. How many are you giving to True Romance? I'm up first here. It was made in 93, but I'm going to put a little sauce on that. Give me 9.6 pink Cadillacs. Jamie G.
I'm going 9.8 pink Cadillacs. It's way up there for me. Yeah, baby. Who doesn't want to drive that caddy? That thing's fire. Clarence has got a fire car, dude. Let's just put it what it is.
Super hot.
Appearance doesn't matter as much when you have a car like that.
Yeah, super cool car. I'm pretty sure it's purple. Am I wrong about that?
I think it's purple too.
It's Mr. Purple.
Yeah, I think it's Mr.
He's on
Piple.
another job,
You
dude.
ain't gonna be Mr. Piple because Mr. Piple's on another job.
Yeah, it's on another job. But yeah, how many purple Cadillacs do I want to put on the line here, man? I'm saying I'm giving it a 9.87. Yeah. Truman is one of the best movies ever made, dude. I'll take that any day, man. It's fucking sick, dude.
We're trying to get to a movie.
You better get going. You don't want to miss 1 second of that movie.
Is it that good?
It's the best goddamn movie I've ever seen in my life.
Oh.
Dude hangs dumb.
I told you!
don't want to miss that.
To close out our show here, we're going to decide what to watch for our next episode. We're all going to pitch something and then vote on the winner. You cannot vote for yourself. If there is a tie, we spin the wheel, the magical wheel. We're leading off here with our strong hand. I'm up first, followed by the Soup Deuce, and then finally, Magnum Mills. I've been toying around with this for some time. I'm just going to go ahead and do it. I'm taking us back to the 1991 action drama thriller starring Sean Astin. I'm going Toy Soldiers. This movie was awesome. I think it's Sean Astin's best role ever, and he's been in like a lot of shit, including Lord of the Rings. Come on, man. We got great writing. We got great acting. We got great story. We got Louis Gossett Jr. Give Toy Soldiers another look. It deserves it. And we got a freaking 1-800-porn phone number, dude. Back when you used to have to do that. Like, come on, man. This is Toy Soldiers.
Rock and roll, man. I'm pretty sure those were 900 numbers back then. But I mean, whatever. It all works out, man. Toy Soldiers, good fucking call, dude. Damn it, man. So I'm gonna lighten things up here, man, and go comedy this time, man. Completely off the path of what we've been doing, man. I want to talk about a movie that I don't think enough people have seen, man. It's a Rob Schneider movie. You think Rob Schneider, you think like Hot Chick or fucking Deuce Bigelow. Probably Deuce Bigelow first, and maybe Hot Chick, and then various like random cameos in fucking in Sandler movies and stuff. But and The Animal was a good one too. Anyway, man, I'm going with Big Stan, dude. Big Stan is a good fucking movie, dude. It's got fucking David Carradine in it, who is Bill from Kill Bill and everything, man, as the master. And it's a solid rated R. It's definitely is up there, and I think it's underlooked and underrated, and I want to give that a fucking nod, man. So we're going Big Stan, Rob Schneider. That's my pitch. Check it out.
All right. Well, I have a lot, so I'm going to spin the wheel, and I'm going to pitch whatever the fuck the wheel tells me to pitch. And this is the pilot of Severance from Apple TV. There's one season. This is very difficult to talk about without spoiling anything, but it does have both Christopher Walken and Patricia Arquette, hence the pitch here. All I can say is this is a very interesting take on how you divide your personal life and your work life. It is incredibly awesome. The second season will be coming out sometime this year. I suggest we all watch the pilot episode. I believe Jamie G has already. Soup, you would enjoy it. I am looking for an excuse to rewatch the first season, so I am pitching the pilot episode of Severance.
All right, Mills, time to recap the options and remind us what order we are voting in.
Roger Dodger, Jamie G, you pitched Toy Soldiers. The Soup pitched Big Stan, and I pitched the pilot for Severance. And we vote in the reverse of the order in which we nominated in. So I will vote first, followed by the Soup, and Jamie G is potentially the decider. All right, Toy Soldiers. Soup.
Yeah, fuck, man. This is a tough fucking call, dude. Tough fucking call, man. But you know what? I've seen Toy Soldiers. I haven't seen Severance. So let me go with that. Although I love the Toy Soldiers idea, but I'm going to vote for Severance.
Soup with the Severance pilot, Jamie G.
I love Severance. It's one of the best shows out right now, but I've just recently watched it, so I'm looking for something different. I've never seen Big Stan. I'm voting Big Stan, which means we got to spin the wheel.
And here we go. What are we doing? Big Stan.
Oh, no shit. Man, I want a wheel, dude. Hell yeah. It's the first time I ever fucking won a wheel, I think, man.
Congratulations, dude. You won the wheel. How excited are you for Big Stan?
Pretty big, pretty excited. It's cool. I think it'll be fun for you guys to check out, man. It's different, we've been kind of on a serious tip. This is straight up comedy. It's funny. It's a good fucking like happy medicine kind of vibe, and it's cool. It's a good one, man. I'm looking forward to talking about it.
All I can say is I hope, Soup, I hope you don't deliver another one of your ones where you put us in. Would you have us watch that one with the British dude who was like
watched before? I mean,
a
fuck,
panic, nervous. No, Soup, I will never forgive you for making us watch that one and selling it as high as it was, and it was basically bullshit and it sucked dick.
Well, it's the Simon Pegg joint?
The Simon Pegg joint, dude. It was fucking terrible.
Yeah, that wasn't that bad. Was it a rational fear of everything or something like that? I don't know if that was the exact title. It was something like that.
I mean, I thought it was.
You compared it to Fear and Loathing. There's no way.
Whatever, man. Yeah, I was, I got really zoned in and watched it, and I was like,
and Jamie G, you had a chance to get someone else to watch Severance, and you passed it up, so that's on you.
That is on me.
Hey, whatever. It is what it is, dude. Hopefully,
you realize how much fun it would be. You realize how much fun it would be to discuss that.
Come on, dude. Toy Soldiers. Yeah, I'm so bummed with you guys, dude. Like,
hey, man, mad props to Toy Soldiers, dude. But I mean, like I said, I pitched a comedy because I wanted to switch up the vibe, dude.
That's fine. You
won.
You gotta come hard. You're following up True Romance, man. You gotta come with a heater.
Oh,
yeah. I mean,
now you put it like that. That's where I wanted. See, this is where I was like, man, should I pitch like a Tarantino movie or something?
This is where you pull the Demolition Man card, dude.
Yeah, you should have did it because I have a feeling this is gonna disappoint, but we'll find out.
Don't go into it like that, man. It's good enough, dude. Eat Scorpion or something. It's fine, dude. You'll like it.
Well, we'll find out here on Regular Dudes Watch Stuff. Thank you guys for checking us out here on Regular Dudes Watch Stuff. We appreciate you checking us out. Please remember, like, subscribe. Just go ahead, do it. Do it now, as Arnold would say in Predator. Just do it. Do it now.
Thank you very much for checking out Regular Dudes Watch Stuff. We really appreciate it. You can find us wherever you get your pods. Find us on YouTube. We're on social media at Dudes Watch Stuff. Any trouble finding our YouTube channel, just go to JoeBlowFootballShow.com. Brings you right there. Thanks again for everything. If you could, please, if you enjoyed it, like, comment, rate, follow, subscribe. It helps other people find the show. We appreciate it. If you got a movie, show, anything you'd like to see us talk about, drop it in the comments. Let us know. Again, we appreciate it. I am Megan Mills. He is Jamie G. That is the Soup Deucer. We are all awesome. We are all people. We are all regular dudes. And thank you very much. We will be back next time to cover Big Stan.
That 3 words went through my mind endlessly, repeating themselves like a broken record. You're so cool. You're so cool. You're so cool.